in my boat.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino.
It is that time. Your time. Incredible sports weekend. What's up, everybody? We are going back to back today. So you are going to get a double dose of the King's Court and Open Forum. We're going to go till about 4:30, 4:45 here with the King's Court. And then right after that, 5 p.m., Napes steps in. I'm warming up the seat for Napes. Plenty to talk about over the weekend. I mean, the Rockets, the Clippers, they're a Levine, a DeRozan away, aren't they? I think they are. We'll talk about the pair of Game 7s. In fact, the NHL outdid the NBA again this weekend with Game 7s. A lot to get over, a lot to kind of go through, changes being made with the coaching staff, and a familiar tie with a name that is being reported by Sam Amick to be one of the leading candidates to be the lead assistant coach for Doug Christie and the Kings next season. All that, more. I even got something for Haunted Horse. Haunted Horse, man. By the way, I've got the best horse call of all time, which has nothing to do with Haunted Horse, but there is a controversy coming out of the Kentucky Derby that we'll talk about. And, you know, Mondays for airing grievances, but Haunted Horse, he's going to want to pay special attention to the controversy that's coming out of Kentucky. Let's get after it. Thanks for being here. First of a doubleheader on If You Don't Like That.
Late nights on the screen, hey, it's Grant and Ryan. We bleed purple, talking hoops, never lying. Sacramento Kings, we rise and we fall. If you don't like that, then you don't know ball. Jerry sitting with the stories of the game, spilling all the truth, driving legends insane. From the Cow Palace days to Arco's roar, this town's heart beats on the hardwood floor. If you like that, turn away now. Kings.
It's Monday, which is made
airing
for
of grievances.
the airing
I got a lot of problems with you people.
of grievances.
Now you're going to hear about it.
I do not have another airplane grievance. However, that could change come this time next week. Programming note, we will not be on the air, at least the King's Court, on Wednesday and Thursday. Going to be off. I'm going to be traveling, and hopefully getting a seat next to some normal people, shall we say. But no show on Wednesday, Thursday. Nonetheless, a lot to get through. A couple of Game 7s in the NBA. Kings working out some players pre-draft. Don't get too excited right now. Kings sit with the 42nd pick. I know some of you are like, just holding on. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get that top 3, top 4 pick. We're going to keep it. I know Dennis is planning on it. I heard Dennis is called a Grant last week. He straight up said, Dennis, how would you be feeling tonight if the doctor said you have a 3.4% chance of waking up in the morning? I think that calmed Dennis out really quick. But anyways, a lot going on, like I said, in the world of sports, most significantly with the Kings. And let's get to the legend first. The legend that is Kevin John over at ABC 10. Kings working out some of these prospects today. Center, small forward, shooting guard. Why am I not surprised, but this is just the first of many batches that the Kings will likely be working out either here in Sacramento or traveling to go check out their workouts as this draft process goes along. Nothing really. I mean, I don't know much about many of these guys, to be quite honest with you. Have not done a deep dive on them. But that's who they worked out. I know Amari Williams talked to the media afterwards. We might get to some audio of that. More importantly, Doug Christie making some changes, reportedly to the coaching staff, basically cleaning house, including Jay Triano as associate head coach. It looks like the only guy that's going to be retained is Leandro Barbosa, which is not a huge surprise to many. He and Doug are fairly close, but the name that Sam Amick is reporting, Mike Woodson, 22-year veteran of the NBA, most recently coming off of a run in college at the University of Indiana, did not really work out the way he wanted it to. They agreed to come to a mutual separation before last season ended. A lot of expectations when you are coaching in a Big Ten school like that, especially Indiana, which is known for its basketball. The thing I go back to with Mike Woodson, now, do I mind a possible Mike Woodson hire? Not necessarily, but there is something that kind of bugs me about it that I'll talk about in a little bit when we get more into that, because there was a more important thing that went down today in coaching that I think we should hit first. But Mike Woodson, 315 and 365 in his career coaching in the NBA, including 16 and 22 in the playoffs. So we'll get to the ties that kind of make me a little weary. Is this a Doug Christie decision? You have to ask yourself that. Would that be a Doug Christie decision? Getting to the bigger news of the day, Gregg Popovich, the one, the only, some say the best basketball coach of all time, and the San Antonio Spurs put on one of the classiest press conferences I have ever seen. It was awesome to be able to see Pop again since his health issues, the stroke that he suffered during the regular season. And he had a little setback a few weeks back that was reported. But he was there today to support Mitch Johnson taking over as the new head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. Mitch served as the interim coach this year. But look at who's up there with Pop. Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili. You want to talk about a classy organization that does it right? Yeah, and Pop even still brought the humor. We'll play it here in a little bit. Some other things, certainly the NBA playoffs, a pair of game sevens that we will break down. Buddy Hield, what do you want to say about him? Buddy Hield dropping 33 on the Houston Rockets. Buddy's doing buddy things, I guess, but the Warriors move on. Got some thoughts on that. Draymond Green playing out of his mind right now defensively. Absolutely took Şengün out of the game yesterday. The Rockets, you might be showing up in my grievances as well later in the show. The flip side of that one was our other game 7, which happened on Saturday, Denver and the Clippers. Steve Ballmer packs a plane of Clippers fans that usually sit in the wall down at their new arena, the Intuit Dome. Did not help. You want to talk about a championship third quarter? 35-19. Denver outscored the Clippers in the third quarter. Everybody but Kawhi Leonard looked disinterested, and that included, you'll never guess, James Harden. What? No way. James Harden didn't show up in a game 7? His last 2 game 7s, he's had 7 points and 9 points, respectively. This one, though, was more about what the Denver Nuggets did. Now, what's interesting coming out of this series, now Denver and Jokic line up directly across OKC and SGA, the two candidates for the leading candidates for MVP this year. I actually think the Clippers would have had a better shot at beating OKC than Denver. We'll talk about it though. And sorry, Patrick, your Knicks are not showing as advanced there, but that is what your playoff picture looks like, including the Knicks and the Celtics kicking off here in a little bit. You get a couple of games tonight and a couple other things that I wanted to get to before we get to you guys. Hockey. Last night, I don't even follow hockey. I texted Grant. I said, I'm late to the party. I started kind of following it with what they did with their all-star game, how they turned it into a 4-nation tournament. Last night was unbelievable. Like one of those situations where if you were looking at like the ESPN win indicator, I bet it would be like 0.2% in favor of the Winnipeg Jets. Guess what? They ended up winning the game. Some incredible moments and calls from that we're going to get to. Also, like I said, maybe the best horse call I've ever heard. Like the horse announcers, they have to be so good at what they do. And they're doing so many of these a day to bring that enthusiasm each time. But this might be the best one I've ever heard. And I'm sure some of you have probably heard it. It's old, but it resurfaced to me this weekend. So we're going to get into that as well. So thanks for being here on a Monday. We air grievances. You've got Grant at 5 o'clock coming up. So much to get into. Happy Cinco de Mayo, if that is something that you celebrate. Sounds like an excuse to throw back a couple Coronas or Modelo's or whatever you think. The Kings fumbled the bag with Hallie and Buddy. Let's not get into that just yet. I'm not ready to say that they fumbled the bag with Hallie. Can we kind of just close that conversation and realize that both teams came out better and got what they needed at those respective times? That's what it was. You got to the playoffs. They got a guy that was younger, that was really a more of an unknown. A lot of upside there. Could work out. It has worked out. But remember, Hallie, I believe, was at the top of the ballot for the Players Anonymous poll, saying he's the most overrated player in the NBA. So you got to keep that in mind. But hey, credit to Indiana going into Cleveland. Cleveland's got some major injury problems right now. Major. We'll talk about those as the show goes on. But they took it to Cleveland on their home court. They took back home court second round of the playoffs. So good for them. Tied for the most 3-pointers in a game 7 with 9. Yeah, he had a great game. Look, the game plan was straight out of really Coach Ime Udoka's game plan was very similar to what Doug Christie and the Kings tried to do late in the season at times, where it's like, all right, you beat us. You beat us. Not let the role players beat you. You beat us, and it didn't work out. The role players absolutely toasted them. Why not in sack? I don't know what we're talking about. Remember Gregg Popovich coming close to termination before the days of Tim Duncan? That's a good point, Peter. That is a very good point. Is he the best coach? He's the best coach of my lifetime. I don't know about all of your lifetimes, but I think he is the best coach. Easily the most respected of my lifetime. And the guy gets it. Like he gives the sideline reporters a hard time, but it's from this place of fun. It's from this place of sarcasm. Unless you ask a dumb question. If you ask him a dumb question, fair enough. It's tea time. Let it go. That's who Pop was. But to see what he did today and what that organization did today, Pop didn't need to be there today. Do you know how much that meant probably to Mitch Johnson? You realize 23, let me repeat that, 23 head coaches, either in the NBA or the WNBA, have come from a Popovich staff. That's incredible. And think about how he rolled it over. But to have your players still come back, Ginobili, Duncan, be there today, Man, that is a far cry from what we have seen here in Sacramento over the last few weeks. I mean, no offense to DC. I don't think DC really did much wrong in his last press conference. But can you tell, like, just different levels, almost different leagues? Tristan, it is not Taco Tuesday, my man. But you know what, Tristan, I'm going to let you get away with that. You know why? Because I announced that I'm not going to be here on Wednesday and Thursday.
Tristan, pay attention.
Which means,
come on,
Tristan, we have a condensed week, which means, all right, I guess we can start rolling over into Tuesday today, if you would like. That's fine. Finchy, I thought about you this weekend, buddy. I was at the Nugget, and I was checking the price of asparagus, like the one that's in the pre-made counter, because I didn't have any olive oil at the house, and I didn't want to buy any olive oil. I just wanted to be able to heat it up. And I wasn't looking for the price. I was just looking to make sure it wasn't reserved for you. Usually they don't put it out if you can't buy it. Luckily, it wasn't. What's up, Flores? How you doing, buddy? So let's talk really quick before we get back into Gregg Popovich. Let's talk really quick about Mike Woodson. And Sam Amick's reporting that Mike Woodson is one of the leading candidates to be associate head coach for Doug Christie. Let's go back to Doug Christie's press conference when he was asked what he's looking for in his staff.
A couple departures from the coaching staff, just when we're trying to fill in the pieces of what's going to make you successful now that it's a full-time gig, of course. What sticks out to you, or traits perhaps that you're going to want for guys that are going to be on that bench with you?
A lot of the things that you've heard Scott and I speak upon, from a driving desire, a passion, the ability to think and deal with adversity at a high level. There has to be a calmness, and because our players are going to feel that, and we want them to go on the court and have a passion, have an aggressiveness, have a super aggressiveness, but at the same time be calm, and that comes from our coaching staff. Yeah.
Doug, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so that's what Doug said he's looking for. Guys that are going to be calm. I don't know a ton about I don't know a ton about Coach Woodson's, shouldn't say Mike, Coach Woodson's temperament. Here's what I do know. He's part of that Detroit tree that we keep talking about. You know how Joe Dumars was in Vivek's ear? Alvin Gentry, part of that Detroit tree. To be fair for Coach Woodson, also part of the Popovich tree. Scott Perry, part of the Detroit tree. Is this a Doug Christie consideration, or is this a Scott Perry consideration? Because Mike Woodson won his only championship in the NBA as an assistant in 2004 with Detroit under Larry Brown. Larry Brown also tied to all those names that we mentioned. Now, take that away. I don't know that it's a terrible choice. If it's Doug's choice and he feels that he is the right guy, then all right. I don't know what the market looks like. You need to ask Scott Perry. Scott Perry said at his press conference he considered anybody that was or could be available, and I'm paraphrasing there. He thought about them. So I don't know what that pool really is. But what I do know is Doug Christie is one bad losing streak. And this is where Napes and I disagree. Napes thinks he's going to be on a short leash. I think he's going to have a little bit of a longer leash. But Doug is one bad streak, theoretically, from having that chair ripped from him and it going to Mike Woodson. So Kings fans, how you feeling about Mike Woodson? We have to be realistic here. This is Sacramento. Coaches get paid more not to coach than they get paid to coach. So when you're looking at the assistant or the associate head coaching position, it's something as fans we have got to think about. And to me, just saying, I don't know about Coach Woodson's energy levels. I don't know if he balances Doug out. I don't mind his winning percentage. I mean, it could be better. He's winning at a .463 percentage, so slightly under 500, 22 years in the NBA. But what bugs me here, and maybe I am looking too far into this, but what bugs me here is I have to ask the question, is this a Doug Christie hire? Because all of the elements are sitting there right in front of you that I laid out about Joe Dumars heavily influencing Vivek Ranadive in this franchise before. Alvin Gentry still in place with this franchise. Now Scott Perry, who quote unquote cut his teeth in Detroit during that time as well. That's where Mike Woodson won a championship as an assistant head coach. I'm sorry that we got to look at the other side of the coin, but that's the other side of the coin. Now, if this is Doug's dude, which to me, if I'm Doug, I don't know if that's the first person I'm looking at. I don't know that I'm not picking up the phone and at least saying, hey, Scott Brooks, because Doug's real big on this Sacramento thing, right? He gets to manage this gem of an organization. So you would think Doug needs coaches or wants coaches that understand what Sacramento is and what this fan base is made of and what this fan base has as expectations on a night in and night out basis, regardless of whether you win or lose. Maybe Doug made that call. I just don't like that when I look up Mike Woodson, it takes me exactly 10 minutes with my detective hat on to know that he is tied to everybody else that we're worried about being yes men. I really hope this is Doug's hire if he ends up being the hire. Sam Amick reporting that Mike Woodson is one of, if not the leading candidate to be Doug's associate head coach. And you got to get that in place fairly quick. But why Mike Woodson? He spent some time in New York. Atlanta as head coach. Milwaukee, Cleveland, 76ers, Detroit, and the Clippers as an assistant coach, coming off of a few years in Indiana. You know, a great person to ask about this, probably Damon Bruce. I need to hit Damon up to ask him a little bit more about Mike Woodson. But what's your reaction to Mike Woodson as I kind of throw these things out there? It feels like a Perry one. Thumper says, feels like a Perry one. It's just really odd. Why Mike Woodson? Now, he does hit some of those things that I said. I said you need somebody, in my opinion, with NBA head coaching experience. He has plenty. You need an X's and O's guy. I don't know if Mike Woodson's an X's and O's guy. I do know that his exit from Indiana makes sense because I would not want to be coaching in college basketball right now. Nowhere near it. I bet trying to navigate the last couple of years has been different than anything Mike Woodson has ever experienced with NIL, etc. But I just, man, that one just kind of shocked me. I don't know. So if you know more about Mike Woodson than I do, holler. I would love to get your opinion. He'll be a good head coach after a firing. All right. Virgil says, 2 first. Okay, we're putting trades in there. We're going to talk about the teams that have been bounced out. We'll get to some of their decisions. I'll ask you this. Would you rather have Fred VanVleet at $44 million than Zach LaVine at what he's making? Just curious. We gonna recreate? Well, that's see, Tristan. Are we recreating the Chicago Bulls on the court and the front office of the Detroit Pistons? Like, is that what we're trying to do here? It's just weird to me. Olive oil's not healthy for you. I thought olive oil is healthy for you. What do you mean? I guess there's like a zillion other alternatives out there. There's avocado oil. Yes, Scooby-Doo. I think that's a name a lot of people were hoping for. I do. Good, bad. Bobby has earned the right to be in the chair next to Doug. In fact, I would argue he's got a $44 million. I think it's $44 million. We're going to go over it in a little bit, Dennis. He's got an option, team option, $44 million. So are they going to pick that up? It's a good question. We'll see. VanVleet, hands down. Okay. Do you know if Woodson and Brown coached together? Yes. Larry Brown was coach of the Detroit Pistons when they won that 2004 championship. Getting back to Bobby, though, Bobby's earned the right, in my opinion, to also be an NBA head coach. So I don't know if he would want to come sit second chair to Doug, but that would make a lot more sense. Now, do you feel comfortable with that? I mean, from a standpoint of energy, from a standpoint of getting Sacramento, knowing basketball, Bobby hits all those marks. I guess the one that he doesn't hit for me is he's never been a head coach yet. But maybe that's more important to me than the organization. Maybe not. But Mike Woodson, man, I'm sorry. It sucks that we have to do this. As Kings fans, it stinks that we have to do this, but in my gut, like it doesn't feel like a Doug Christie name. It just doesn't. Tell me if I'm wrong. Let me know. I would love for y'all to say, Rhino, you're crazy. Like, stop. Like, take your tin hat off. Like, stop. You're crazy. It's not a big deal. To me, it kind of feels like a big deal because why Mike Woodson? Like, you're just coming off of a 4-year, I believe it was 4 years. Yes, 4 years at Indiana, and you're hopping straight back to the NBA. In fact, I would ask this, how many other teams would be interested in bringing Mike Woodson in as an associate head coach right now? I bet you that's the question that Grant's going to ask. And if you're just joining us here on this Monday, don't forget, Napes is going to be here at 5 today. So we are going back to back on the channel. Make sure you hang in there and call him up with your questions. He'll be giving his thoughts on this. And again, this is all based off of reporting from Sam Amick about Mike Woodson being one of the leading candidates to take that second seat to Doug Christie. I don't know. It just doesn't sit right to me. And when things don't sit right, usually we know where we're headed. Woodson's a defensive genius. All right, fair enough. Patrick, need your take on Woodson. Need your take on him. What players are coming out from Indiana? I have no idea. And you can't even judge that, Dennis, because of NIL. Every player is a free agent at the end of every season. Woodson, not a good hire. There you go. You guys are talking about, dude, Ben Simmons is not coming to Sacramento. It's not happening. Sorry. It's just not. Daniel, he did 250 draft simulations. And we got into the top 4 5 times, 3 times fourth, 1 time second, and on the 247th simulation, we got the number 1 pick, dude. So you sat there and you did 250 simulations in a row? First off,
Acknowledge me.
holy bleep, man. That is commitment. But I think that's right around what the percentages should say, right? That's right there. And you're right. So you're telling me there's a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
God, it's such a good movie. That is such a good movie. By the way, if you have any grievances to air on this Monday, feel free to call the show. You can hit the link that's floating around in the chat. I'll put it in there one more time. If you want to give your take on anything going on with the Kings, they held some workouts today. This Mike Woodson news, clearing of house, coaching-wise, coaching staff-wise, with the exception of Leandro Barbosa. No big surprise there. Doug and him very close. Would say Doug's kind of taken him under the wing. And I would say he had a lot of say towards the end of the season. And I know he missed some time away from the team. But yeah, also a big story from this weekend. Horse racing. Horse racing. I can't tell you who won the Kentucky Derby. I do know that there was like 22 plus million people that tuned into it. I do know that Napes, his son Chase, was at the Derby. That's pretty cool. I do know that influencer and girlfriend to MLB pitcher, big name, Paul Skeens, Livy Dunn, announced the Kentucky Oaks race, the Riders Up, right? Riders Up. She got a lot of blowback for the way that she said it, and I don't get it. Here it is.
Kentucky Oaks fans, now for the annual tradition we have all been looking forward to, Riders Up.
What was wrong with that? I mean, you could argue that maybe she had more cereal on the mind rather than horse racing.
Kentucky Oaks fans.
Did she say oats or oaks? That's the only thing that I can really point out from this.
Fans, now for the annual tradition we have all.
So she's getting hammered a little bit on social media. And Haunted Horse, by the way, here's the reason you don't have a picture of Livy Dunn on the screen. You don't have a picture of Livy Dunn on the screen because I know what happened to Haunted Horse's computer after he started searching Livy Dunn on his computer and like his social, and then like all these other people start coming up. I don't need that on my computer, especially my work computer, right? It was fine. That's what I thought too. However, the best thing I heard from horse racing this weekend, and I don't know how it made its way to me, but it did. It is gold. In fact, it's 14 years old. It might be the best horse racing call I have ever heard. Here it is.
Field as Lady Mutada leads the way to the backstretch. And Little Miss Macho is second through a quarter of 24 2/5 seconds. Rojo's Tune third at the rail. And then comes My Wife Knows Everything and The Wife Doesn't Know, followed by Eleni's Hope on the inside, 5 off the lead. 2.5 to Late for Class. To the outside on the lucky side, Morningside Heights along the rail. Miss Tallahassee is last. The half was in 48 3. Past the half-mile pole. Lady Mutada by a length and a half. Little Miss Macho is in second. After that comes My Wife Knows Everything in third. On the far outside, The Wife Doesn't Know is moving up and is now fourth and right alongside of My Wife Knows Everything. My Wife Knows Everything and The Wife Doesn't Know are moving together on the far turn, and they're coming after Lady Mutada coming to the quarter pole. Lady Mutada in front. Here come My Wife Knows Everything and The Wife Doesn't Know on the far outside. Little Miss Macho is fourth. They're into the stretch. Lady Mutada, My Wife Knows Everything. Center of the track, The Wife Doesn't Know. Into the final furlong. My Wife Knows Everything. The Wife Doesn't Know. They're 1-2. Of course they are. My Wife Knows Everything in front. To the outside, The Wife Doesn't Know. My Wife Knows Everything. The Wife Doesn't Know. My Wife Knows Everything. more than the wife doesn't know. Whew. This Tallahassee was third, and Morningside Heights was fourth.
Find me. Find me a better call than that. You're not going to do it. And especially the end of that, because this track doesn't look like there's a lot of people. This is like one of those things where Mark, not a fan of the Kings here for Ryan. He knows his, appreciate that. Okay. So this is not a track that has my wife knows everything, right? Of course, my wife knows everything had to win. This is not a track that's heavily populated. This is like one of those things where if you're degenerate gambler or you own part of the horse, you're paying close attention. You might even be there in person, right? And the end of it just kills me. You know, some guy that was just chasing his bets all day, couldn't win a race, right? Could not win one. My wife knows everything finally comes through for him. Listen to the end of this.
Was fourth.
Yeah! Thank
Field
you, sir. You are now a permanent staple here on the King's Court, my man. Somebody leaves a good comment. Good job, dude. Well done. Yeah. Anyways, we've still got a lot to go through today, including the NBA playoffs from this weekend. We're previewing the games coming up tonight, most notably the Knicks and the Celtics. I know a lot of people on the East Coast are going to be paying attention to that one. We're going to talk about Coach Popovich and what happened with his press conference today, the El Jefe thing. You got to watch it to really get the most out of it. We're going to play some audio in a little bit, but I want to talk about what really kind of took me away last night from the NBA. I found myself, and you guys know, I follow the NBA for a living. If there's a game 7, my eyes should be peeled to it. Unfortunately, my eyes got peeled to something completely different, a whole different type of game 7. It was game 7 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It was between the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues. Now, the St. Louis Blues in game 6, they scored a goal on their first shot attempt. This game was in Winnipeg, and it was a whiteout. They've got the entire fan base that's not in the arena packed in the streets. You've got the cameras shooting them anytime something happens. They come out in game 7, St. Louis, and they score again on their first goal. And you're just thinking, oh, man, it's going to be one of those nights, right? Like the Rockets, their fan base, they knew it's going to be one of those nights. So it gets down to the third period. The score is still 3-1. Winnipeg pulls their goaltender. Here's what happens. There's exactly 2 minutes and 6 seconds left.
On a foul, his stick being held by Folk. Shen moves it to the line where it's kept in. Moved around by the Jets. Domestikov shooting. They score! The Winnipeg Jets are within one with 1:55 to go. All thanks to Vlad Domestikov.
And what was so cool is just what's on the screen right there, right behind their bench. Whoever has those seats, I guess they've been sitting there with this sign, "We believe." So they get a goal closer. Like if you're looking at the ESPN win percentage tracker at this point, it's probably in the neighborhood of like 2.7%. They get to the last 15 seconds of the game. Check out what happens.
Oh, Wheeler's shot off the skate. It was Thomas as Velarde desperate to get it. Under 10 seconds to go. fires, passes across the zone. They score! Can you believe it? My goodness!
.6 left on the clock.
1.6 seconds left. Cool, Perfetti has done it again. We are tied in Game 7.
1.6 on the clock. To score a goal that close to the end of a period in a hockey, that's like 0.2 seconds on the clock in basketball. In fact, like almost like 0.1 seconds comparatively. The game goes into double overtime. And you knew the momentum was going to keep going, but there was a couple of close shots from St. Louis, and then the magic happens.
Looking for the tip. It's a pass. Kyle Connor. Pionk wants it. He gets it. Pionk shoots. Tip. They score! Game over. Series over. And the hero is Adam Lowry.
Are you kidding me? Hat trick. Series. The guy with the hat trick played for St. Louis. Unbelievable. It was one of the coolest things I have seen in a really long time. And it's just a small sample size of the stuff that happens in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I need to get more on board. I need to be more on board. That fan base, holy bleep. You didn't even have to be a fan of Winnipeg. You didn't need a dog in the fight, and you were still jumping up and down when that goal went in. So really cool moment. Congratulations to them on moving on in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Probably the hardest playoffs to win a championship. NBA this weekend, still a lot to talk about, specifically both game sevens, the Warriors and the Rockets, Clippers and the Nuggets, two teams that are, the two teams that lost. The Rockets, let's start there. Let's start with the Rockets. Şengün was shut down last night. I mean, it wasn't even close. Draymond Green, defensively, towards the end of this series, and Buddy Hield talked about this player-only meeting that was held, and, you know, Grant's got his take on player-only meetings. I've got my take on them. It's a team meeting. Okay, right? But you saw the look on Steph Curry's face at the end of game 6 where he's rolling his eyes in the back of his head and he's like, oh man, we got to go back to Houston. And everything in this one felt like it was going to be Houston, right? Not so much. The Rockets only scored 19 points in the first quarter. They could not get any flow to what they were doing. Now, they did have one guy that showed up, and it was Amen Thompson. What was incredible about this one was the fact that Steph Curry didn't score his first bucket until midway through, almost late into the second quarter. Buddy Hield went nuclear last night. He dropped 22 in the first half. 22. Like, if there was ever a dream scenario for Buddy Hield, it was last night. Dude's interview is airing as he's chucking up three-pointers and making them in the second quarter. For whatever reason, the Rockets decided they were going to lay off of Podziemski. They were going to lay off of Buddy Hield, and Steph Curry just made all of the right plays. And the thing that I think a lot of people are forgetting about this is Jimmy Butler. He didn't have a massive game. He was clutch at the end, but Jimmy freaking Butler is playing hurt with one of the most painful injuries that you can play through. And somehow Golden State gets through this series. And I found it to be very fitting that Houston, right around the 3-minute mark, 3.5-minute mark, their season basically ended on a loss of composure. Dylan Brooks flopping everywhere. That wasn't it. It was actually Fred VanVleet. He shoved Jimmy Butler. Like, Jimmy Butler got up and he looked at the ref and gave him that look like, if this wasn't the playoffs, it's go time. Like, he looks at the ref and the ref looks right back at him, who's standing between him and VanVleet. And the ref's like looking at him. He goes, "Oh, I know. I saw it. I caught it. It's good." They go back to the monitors. It ends up being 2 free throws and the ball. They had a 10-point lead at that point, and the free throws. So the game was over. But Houston, the whole thing about them this year, they too young. Do they have that one guy that can slow things down? That one guy with the experience? Can they keep their composure? When they came into the Golden One Center and the Kings had success against them, both times, they could not keep their composure. So Golden State moves on. I don't know really what to make of the Golden State Timberwolves matchup. I don't. I feel like the Rockets probably would have given a better series to the Timberwolves. I could be wrong. It all kind of depends on Jimmy Butler's health. To me, that's what it's all about. If he can get right, then watch out. This is why we say you don't want to see Steph Curry in a Game 7. You don't want to do it. If you see Steph Curry in a Game 7, Steve Kerr in a Game 7, most times it's not going to end well for you. And you know what really sucked about last night in particular? I was watching the pregame, and all I heard during the pregame, before even they started the Pacers and the Cavs, all I heard was the last time the Warriors were in a Game 7, Steph Curry dropped 50 on the Kings, 50 on the Kings, and then Buddy Hield does what he does. Ex-King, Buddy Hield, you know. I guess it's better Buddy than Steph. I don't know. I don't really care at the end of the day. But Golden State, they move on. Houston just could not keep their composure. And they couldn't get anything going outside Amen Thompson, who is on his way to superstardom. Like, on his way. I did not realize his dad is the agent for him and his brother. That's interesting. That doesn't usually work well, but maybe it's working well in that situation. Here's the other thing, too, that jumped off to me about the Nuggets and the Clippers. Both these teams, the Clippers and the Rockets, they've got big decisions to make. Now, big decisions to make. You've got Kawhi Leonard under contract for 2 more years. The Clippers did not show up the way they needed to show up. They just didn't. And the Nuggets in the third quarter, a championship third quarter, it's like an 18-0 run, 35-19, to end up basically putting the game out of reach. The final score, 120-101, does not tell you the story of this basketball game. There he is. Patrick, I need your take on Mike Woodson, my man. Your take on Scott Perry was so good before. We need to hear from you on Mike Woodson.
Okay. Number one, when Perry was brought over to the Knicks, it was right after they let go of Phil Jackson. And there was another guy running the team. His name was Steve Mills. He was sort of like the owner, Dolan. He was sort of like his flunky. And he ran the team, and Perry assisted him. And the biggest thing going on at that time was Porzingis. He was like insulted, and he didn't play for like the whole year. And I remember Perry and Mills sending the coach at the time, David Fizdale, over to Europe to try to get Porzingis to stay. Well, long story short, Porzingis never stayed. And eventually, the Knicks let go of Steve Mills. So you think Perry would have been running the team at that time. he wasn't running the team. They brought in Leon Rose. And I think Leon Rose is more responsible for the Knicks turnaround than anything that Perry had to do with it. Now, I'm not there. I'm not in the owner's room or anything like that. But it's generally known that Leon Rose gets most of the credit for bringing in the players for the Knicks because he worked for a sports agency, and his son stayed with that agency, and they would get like a lot of players from like Kentucky and Villanova to join the Knicks.
So that was Patrick's take on Scott Perry before Scott Perry came. Now that we're hearing Mike Woodson being one of the leading candidates is Doug Christie's associate, or for Doug Christie's associate head coach. Patrick, I need your take, man. You had Woodson there as your head coach for 2 years. Need your take on his coaching style, what he does well, strengths, weaknesses. You had a front row seat to it. Houdini Harden, getting back to these two teams that lost game sevens and lost them in different ways. Houston wasn't ready for the moment. Now, here's the difference that I'm going to say between Houston and that Sacramento team in 22-23. If you want to compare situations, this Houston Rockets team, I think, would have gone further in the playoffs than the Kings would have gone in 22-23 had they gotten by the Warriors, both teams, in Game 7. James Harden with the Clippers, he is now officially, mark it down, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2025. James Harden is officially a high-level sixth man in the NBA. That's what he is. You can't have 7 points in a Game 7. You can't have 9 points in your Game 7 before that. Dude's juice at its current cost ain't worth the squeeze. So both these teams, what do you do if you're Steve Ballmer? How are you going to shake this thing on its head? You have to. You've got some good young pieces. You got Kawhi under contract for another couple of years. Harden has the player option at $36.4 million or 36.3. You got to think he's going to pick that up. Do they want him back? Probably not. This team wouldn't have done anything different with Paul George. They would be in a deeper hole with Paul George. Ben Simmons, is he going to want to come back? I think they are a team. Like, if I had to shortlist some of these teams, if I look at the Western Conference right now, and I'm shortlisting the teams to really watch, the teams that really might make some big moves this offseason, there's two of them. The Clippers and the Suns. I think you have got to watch them very carefully because you have two owners that are aggressive. You have two owners that now have big enough sample sizes to realize their superstar pairings do not work. If you ever were going to consider trading Kawhi Leonard, now is the time because of the length that's left on his contract. And yes, you have to worry about the games played. He played in the playoffs. Awesome. But you know, if you're going to take Kawhi Leonard, you're going to have a decent enough team to get by in the regular season, or at least a decent chunk of the regular season without him. Simply put, it does not work. Ballmer, and especially in a new arena, Ballmer's going to have to change something up. You can't run it back with that core. And I know the Clippers had a decent amount of success this year and looked pretty good. In fact, they were one of the hottest teams coming into the playoffs. But that's just it. When they get to the playoffs, they disappear. James Harden disappears. Again, I thought Kawhi did a lot of what he could in Denver. That third quarter, the start of the third quarter by Denver, I can't remember a better start to a quarter in the playoffs. I can't. That was the best start. Like, and here's the other thing. In fact, you know what? Let's get into one right now. Let's get into an airing of the grievances, since it is a
The airing
grievance
of
Monday.
grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
I don't understand, for the life of me. Like, I really don't understand how NBA players can be so in tune with the fact that their team is on a positive run. When their team's on a positive run, they're making the right passes. It's flowing everywhere. The ball is getting to the players it needs to get to. They're doing everything right. The IQ is through the roof. Conversely, if you're on a team that is taking that run and your team's not playing well, how do you not understand the flow of the game? How many times do we see, and you saw it play out in the third quarter of the Denver game, Bogdanovich, he got a bad call. He did get one bad whistle. But more times than not, the stupidest fouls when a team is in the midst of, a bad run, that is like the time your IQ should be the highest. That's when my radar should be up the most about not shoving somebody when I set a screen. Like when my radar should be up the most about not throwing the ball into the first row. There's like 2 or 3 of those mistakes that happen on every single run by the team that is not playing well in that run. Bogey had a couple. You saw a couple happen even with Golden State. When Houston tried to come back, stupid fouls. Like plays, if there wasn't a run going on, you'd look at it and say, that is a stupid foul. What are you thinking? But for whatever reason, those mistakes are more common during those runs. And for the life of me, I don't get it. You're NBA players. Shouldn't you be doing everything to stop the bleeding? Shouldn't you be putting a stitch in instead of putting your finger in? Like, come on. It's crazy to me. I don't know. Like, it's good for it. Like, watch tonight in the Boston-New York's game. Somebody will get a stupid foul that makes no sense while their team is trying to try to keep the storm out of the building. They are trying to withstand the run. That is when the stupidest fouls happen, and I can't understand it for the life of me. I guess it's why they're called runs in basketball, but I had to air that.
The airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
Like, it's crazy how that happens. Yeah, cross-court passes over players' heads drive Mark crazy. Hey, everybody, what are we talking about? Green? Which green? Chelsea or Draymond? We're talking about the NBA playoffs. Kawhi's trade value is minimal at this point. A player and a number one. Maybe the Warriors would trade for somebody like that because they are hell-bent to get Steph one more ring. Hey, I've been saying it. I think the Clippers, I think the Rockets, they are a DeRozan or a Levine away. Both perfect fits for those teams. Both perfect fits. So awesome after a Warriors win last night. Yeah, Mark's happy about that. Fair enough. Jalen Green was awful. He was very bad last night. Trick question. The answer is Vivek. Yeah. Who's crazier, Suns or Clips owner? Steve Ballmer's not crazy. What are you talking about? He's just passionate, man. He's got some passion. I would say probably Matt Ishbia is a little bit more erratic. I mean, he did bring in Bradley Beal. Brought in Bradley Beal. Making what, like $69 million a year? When you already didn't have a point guard and you already had too much shooting? Come on. What are we doing? What are we doing? Tristan says he would squeeze some. Tristan, my man.
That's terrible.
Tristan, I'm going to have to put this on the soundboard.
Tristan, pay attention. Pay attention.
Yeah, come on, Tristan.
Come on.
The Lakers are a Frankenstein roster after the Luka trade. They have to figure out a way to get an interior defender. Yeah, remember, that was on the menu. They traded Dalton Connect for Nick Richards, and then the trade got blown up. No, he has not joined the Kings, but according to Sam Amick, he is one of the leading candidates to be Doug Christie's associate head coach. And to me, in my stomach, it doesn't feel like a Doug Christie move. At the start of the show, I ran through the list of ties that all go back to Detroit with this owner. I ask, he delivers. You are the freaking man. Patrick, what's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for calling in, buddy.
Yeah, I really don't have much to say, I'll be honest with you, but my memories of Mike Woodson, he was a pretty good coach. I mean, he took over the reins after Mike D'Antoni had left the Knicks. And he was the last Knicks coach to actually defeat the Celtics back in 2013. And, Greg Anthony played with him. And Linsanity was still there when he was there. Actually, Linsanity started with D'Antoni, but then he was still playing with Woodson for at least a year. And then Lynn had gotten injured. And I think to this day, Carmelo really didn't give him a fair shot because when Linsanity came in and Carmelo Anthony was out, Carmelo came back, and I don't know if Lynn would have sustained his scoring or whatever, but he sort of muscled them out, and then D'Antoni was sort of in Lynn's corner, so D'Antoni was fired by the Knicks, and then Woodson had taken over.
Okay, all right. So
he sustained a lot of the winning after D'Antoni had left. And then the following year, 2014, he got off to a decent record, and then the team started falling apart. And at that time, the Knicks were interviewing Phil Jackson. And when Phil Jackson came on board, he ended up firing Woodson and his whole staff.
Got it. Okay. Was he a defensive guy, offensive guy? What was kind of the focus?
He was more of a defensive guy.
Okay. All right, that makes sense then.
The only thing I could say is that you can't go wrong having Woodson on the bench. I mean, if you're looking for experience.
Yeah, 22 years. Yeah, I agree. He's coached. He's coached almost 700 NBA games as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, he had a long career with the Atlanta Hawks too. So he had 6 years as head coach there. Head coach at Indiana for 2 years recently. So you can't go wrong with Woodson. That's all I have to say.
All right, perfect. Perfect. I appreciate it. How you feeling about tonight? Any quick previews? You think this is what your team was built for? Can they get over the Celtics, huh?
Yeah, it's like I told Grant the other day, it was a little frustrating that like Brunson has to do everything, which thank goodness he's there. He's our leader, but like Towns is going to have to step up, and Bridges, and stuff that's been said before. That's all I can say, so I'm just crossing my fingers,
Amen. I hear you. Well, always good to talk to you. Thanks for calling in with that, making us feel a little bit better. Appreciate it.
The only thing I wanted to say quick is that I hope, I'm really rooting for the Knicks to get to a game 6, because if the Knicks can get to a game 6, anything can happen. So that's how I'm taking the series, to be honest.
Love it. All right. Love it. Game 6. Get there.
All right, hey, thanks for the time, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Patrick.
All right.
Good stuff from Patrick. Filling us in on Mike Woodson, being reported by Sam Amick as one of the leading candidates to be Doug Christie's associate head coach. We said we needed experience. I just don't like all the ties back to everybody else that we worry about. However, Napes will be here in just under an hour. We're going back to back today. He's starting at 5 p.m. Open for him. Make sure you hang around. Give him a call. Get his take on the past weekend, everything that went on. I'm sure he will have a very unique and I would say very cool introspective on Gregg Popovich and what happened today in San Antonio. I thought it was extremely classy. I thought it was the exact way. If you are an owner or an organization, those players weren't told to show up. When was the last time you saw Tim Duncan? I guess occasionally he'll sit courtside. But for Ginobili and Duncan to be standing up there with Pop, man, that says a lot. Then you got the young crew, the current team. I didn't see De'Aaron Fox, by the way. Maybe that was just me. Maybe I missed De'Aaron Fox. But I did not see Foxy. Did you? If you watched the video, we're going to listen to the audio here in a couple of minutes. One thing that I will be seeing this weekend, that's Bennett's Mother's Day this weekend. If you're just hearing that right now from me, it might be too late. But that's why you got to go right now. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Prime cuts of seafood and steak. 3 locations here in the greater Sacramento area, Rockland, Roseville, and Howe and Fair Oaks. You can make your reservations for their Mother's Day brunch. In fact, brunch every weekend, 11 to 2 at all 3 locations. You can get a couple of entrees and a bottle of champagne for under $60. What? Yeah, what? That's a damn good deal. And it's incredible ambiance, beautiful patios, perfect time to go enjoy brunch there. Not a brunch person, not a problem. Happy hour, 2 to 6 p.m. every single day, as well as other specials that literally run basically every day of the week. But you got to go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com to learn more about those. Also, you can put your to-go orders in on the website. You can, as I said, make reservations. PK, you can buy gift cards and much more. Give Bennett's a shout. As I said, prime cuts, seafood, and steak. If you want something lighter, they've also got some amazing different homemade options as well. Big thanks to Brian and the team for sponsoring today's edition of the King's Court. We will be here tomorrow. Jerry Reynolds, Tuesday. So we will get to talk to Jerry for about 30 or 40 minutes. He joins us at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And then the King's Court is going to be off on Wednesday and Thursday. I will be traveling. So we will be off, but we'll be back to wrap up the week on Friday. I am crossing my fingers, like crossing my fingers. Like, how do I avoid this? Well, I'm not even going to go there. Like now I almost have, I'm like scared. Like I'm scared of choosing a seat. Southwest doesn't have first class. I can't just get one of those seats, nor could I afford one. Like I can't be put in that same position again, man. Give me some tips. Like, are there things I should look for in PDAers just to make sure? And it's a one-way flight, so that makes me feel good. It's only a one-way flight. Maybe time of day. I don't know. We will see. As I said, though, Grant, he's back here in just a little bit, here in just under 50 minutes. We talked a little bit, and we've been talking all day about Gregg Popovich stepping down as head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. Just an incredible example of the way a press conference should be done. Mitch Johnson named the permanent head coach. Tim Duncan standing behind Coach Pop. Ginobili standing right there with him. Coach Pop made some formal comments, and then Coach Pop was Coach Pop after that. Here was Coach Pop. The second clip's a little bit harder to hear because he's not talking as loud, but I'll fill you in on it. But this was what Coach Pop had to say about Coach Johnson.
I can never express the gratitude that I have for so many people caring about our organization and sending me thoughts, prayers, that sort of thing since I had this stroke. Things are getting better by the day, but it's not good enough for what we plan ahead. And so it's time to make this change.
The fact that he's even there in person, like I don't know how many public appearances he's made since his stroke. I don't believe any that I remember. So it was such a strong statement, and it was such a strong reminder of how opposite what we've experienced in the last few weeks has been. And I don't want to drag this down. I wasn't in the room for those press conferences. I know the owner wasn't in the room. That's for sure. I don't think past players were in the room. I don't think current players were in the room. I can't confirm that. I'll ask. But back to Pop, that organization came off as a family. It was a loving, respectful transition of coaching power. It was the ultimate blessing that Gregg Popovich could have given any of the 23 different head coaches between the NBA and the WNBA that have come from his coaching tree. Now, just because Coach Pop isn't coaching basketball anymore does not mean that he's not still going to be around. And in classic Pop form, he was wearing, see Tim Duncan right there holding the windbreaker? That was what he was wearing when he made the comments we just heard. As he makes these, Tim and Manu pulled the windbreaker off of him to reveal his shirt, which has his new title, El Jefe.
And I'll do everything I can to help him and help them. But I'll have a new job. And I want to make sure everybody understands what the new job is. I'm no longer a coach. I'm El Jefe.
These shirts, they're going to be like hotcakes in San Antonio. And on the back, it says El Jefe Popovich. He's taken over front office responsibilities. I believe President El Jefe on Cinco de Mayo, but that's classic Pop, man. Can be serious, yelling at you in a huddle, telling you if you miss another free throw, you're buying me a new car. And then there's that funny side to him. You know, him and Craig Sager going back and forth all the time used to be some of the greatest television there was, because it was like this battle back and forth. And you would see these new sideline reporters that would be terrified to ask Pop a question. And if it was their first time, he would always kind of, you know, he would mess with them a little bit, but he'd never usually be rude. But if it wasn't your first time and you did something stupid, he would let you know about it. And there's many, like if you go search the internet, many of these reporters who are asking these questions on camera of Coach Popovich, they have very good relationships. In fact, some of them have great relationships with Coach Pop off the floor. It's been chronicled in a few articles about the relationships he's had with some of those members of the media. But what can you say about Gregg Popovich, man? So great to see him. I hope continued health, continued recovery from that stroke, and just happy to see him back in the front office with San Antonio. Mitch Johnson taking over as the head coach. But it hits you in the heart. And it wasn't one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm so pissed. This is how it's supposed to be done. Like it just hits you in the heart if you watch the press conference when you see an organization that together, that stable, that well ran, You see the chain of command. You see the respect between those chains, not meaning like I'm your superior. Everybody seems to genuinely respect each other. Hell, Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan showing up for this. Come on, that's so cool. So cool. So, very cool moment. Definitely the highlight of the day for me in terms of basketball and news. What's up, Cristobal? No problem. Don Popovich, yes. Senor Popovich, yes, indeed. Patrick was at Pops's first championship at MSG in 1999. That was on the shortened season, right, Patrick? That's pretty cool. Wasn't feeling great at the time, but was happy for him. Absolutely. He changed a lot of things. He went with the double bigs in a different day and time, right? He goes Duncan and Robinson together. There was always a method to his madness. Think about Manu Ginobili, who's standing right there behind him. Ginobili could have started for how many different teams in the NBA? He didn't. He wanted to be there with Pop as a sixth man. We talk about puzzle pieces. Pops is the ultimate puzzle master. The guy knows how to build a basketball team. A basketball team that works in pretty much any generation. He also knows how to see talent. And I mean see through talent. If you are not part of, we talk about heat culture, we talk about culture in other sports and teams. If you weren't part of that Spurs culture, if you didn't have the fabric that they wore in you or on you, didn't matter your talent. You weren't coming in. And conversely, think about the years with Kawhi to see the talent. I can tell you, because I was firsthand when Kawhi was at San Diego State. Kawhi, you saw the raw talent, but you knew there was going to be some development. And the fact that he developed into what he did, and I know it could have been a couple championships, but the fact that it developed into what it did, man, impressive stuff. And that's just one story. Imagine with Grant. He spent a week with Pop on a trip, so I'm sure he'll be talking about that. Pop is the man. Yes, indeed. Grievance is having to get a real ID. Well, Flores, here's my counter grievance to you, man. My counter grievance is you've known
The airing of grievances.
that you need a real
I got a lot
ID.
of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear
for
about
like
it.
the last, 6 years, Flores? The last time I renewed my driver's license, they were offering real IDs. So yeah, it is kind of a pain in the butt to have to get one right now. Let's see. One-way flight alert. Yes, I know, dude. Metal hips. One-way flight. I'm doing it all wrong. Earplugs, earmuffs do not help the situation whatsoever. John Rhino, I am not, John. I am not part of that club. Headphones, we'll see. Yeah, good call by Patrick. For sure. Maybe the Lakers could get an inside defender like AD. Yeah, what are the Lakers going to do as well? I think they're going to try to be bold. I think they're a Levine away as well. But seriously, though, back to the talk about the two teams that were bounced this weekend. Houston's going to be looking for that shooter. Houston's going to be looking for that veteran presence. You've heard Kevin Durant muttered around there a few times. I would, if I was Houston, I would be asking about Devin Booker and not Kevin Durant, but I'm not Houston. I think DeMar DeRozan, I mean this all serious. I keep saying Zach LaVine would be a good fit for any team that gets bounced out of the playoffs. But DeMar would be very good in Houston. Now, the Clippers, I think their situation is a little bit more right now. I think they will be more aggressive than the Houston Rockets need to be, because they've got a great young coach. They've got a really good young core. Their window is just opening up. And Golden State, that's one of the differences. Golden State knew their window is beginning to close. That's why you go get Jimmy Butler. This is exactly why. This is why I asked Jerry this question a couple weeks ago. This is exactly why you put up with a Draymond Green for games in the playoffs like that. He locked down Şengün. Şengün could not get anything going in that game. Anything. So Golden State now goes again from the play-in to the next round against Minnesota. You got a couple of games tonight as well. The Nuggets kick off against OKC, but before that, the one Patrick was talking about, the Knicks and the Celtics. So a lot of good stuff. The horse racing, oh my gosh, that was hilarious. One thing we have not talked about that I wanted to get to was Bill Belichick in that situation with his girlfriend. Apparently, Bill Belichick is now reaching out to PR companies, high-level PR companies, to hopefully take over his public relations. Levine would look perfect in a Lakers uniform. I agree. Yes, shortened season. What's up, Paul? Glad you're here. Weekend at Bernie's. It seemed like a little weekend at Bernie's to me. Interesting. Fair enough. Don't forget, by the way, Grant, he's going to be here pretty soon. In fact, we're going to wrap up in about 15 minutes. Napes is here at 5 o'clock, taking your calls, giving you his take on the Kings news. Doug Christie making some coaching changes, but is Doug Christie making the calls with his coaches? We'll see. A lot of ties. If Sam Amick's reporting is correct, there's a lot of ties between Mike Woodson and a lot of what's going on in that Sacramento front office. But Patrick gave a pretty good impression of Mike Woodson. I liked that. Since it is Monday, though, I do have one more grievance that I need to air.
The airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
My grievance is with the Houston equipment manager. Yes, the Houston equipment manager who decides to wear the jerseys that, like, I think you've only worn like 3 times this year. And I'm being facetious. Definitely not the classic jerseys. But here's the other thing, and the more important thing to me. Look at that gold swoosh that's on those white jerseys. Those are the city jerseys that say we've won a championship before. You're going to roll those out in front of Golden State and Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green in a game 7? Oh, heck no. You can't roll those out. You keep anything gold the heck away from the court, because not only is it probably going to be a little bit of material for Golden State, a little extra motivation they didn't need, it's also kind of like bad juju, man. You're in a game 7 on your home court. You just tied the series up. You would have been the 4th or 5th team to come back from a 3-1 deficit. You keep wearing the threads that got you back into that series, and you damn make sure that there's not a golden swoosh on them. You can't do that. This guy jinxed his team. Bad call by the equipment manager. I mean, that's like how you lose a job if you're the equipment manager. That can't happen. I don't need Steph Curry guarding me and looking at that gold swoosh. Come on, man. I'm just saying, that's a fireable offense in my book. Can't do it. Won't do it. I need classic threads that's like the Kings. You remember when they put the white marks on the back of the jerseys? And I guess that's a little bit different than gold. But The Kings would get a white mark as a past champion because they won one before they were in Sacramento. Houston, yeah, you had Rudy T, you had the Dream, Kenny Smith, you had all those guys. You won a championship. Great. Was an era ago, man. You can't be rolling those threads out in a game 7, representing championship when you're a young team like that. If I'm Ime, I'm pissed. In fact, I'm trading that equipment manager right now. I am not even a Houston fan, and I feel for Houston fan. That's why you lost that game.
The airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
The equipment manager lost them that game 100%. Can't do it. Won't do it. Belichick, different cat. Yes, different cat indeed. I mean, we can't really hate on the guy for dating a 24-year-old. If it works, it works. Grant talked about the differences in Thailand and some of his friends that live over there and the gaps in ages, and they couldn't be happier. The problem I have with Bill Belichick is her being everywhere, including the football program. Like, in what world is she qualified? If she just came out of college, like, it's insane to me that Bill Belichick is sitting there and he's kind of being himself. Like, I could get why, like, a younger girl would want to be with him. He's got that vibe to a degree. Like, I just don't give a you-know-what, right? He's doing that interview. He's got the hole in his Navy sweater. He just doesn't care. And then you've got this.
Not talking about this.
No.
No.
Not talking about this. No. No.
Not talking about this.
No.
No.
That just seems like the complete opposite fit for a guy like him. But apparently she was trying to, or was getting involved in game day logistics with that football program. That's scary. So good to know that he is apparently hiring or looking to hire a PR agency. He's actually pretty attractive. Here was the CBS story if you missed it.
And the Patriots in early 2024.
He's got a cold, so I'm not going to kiss him.
I have to ask about Robert Kraft because 24 years together, 6 Super Bowls. Unless I'm wrong, he's not in this book. How come?
He's not. Well, again, it's about my life lessons in football, and it's really more about the ones that I experienced directly.
He's not even in the acknowledgement section.
Correct.
Do you feel like you were treated with dignity and respect when you were let go by Robert Kraft?
Yeah, well, it was a mutual decision for us to part ways.
He said fired.
It was a mutual decision.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that that's the...
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested.
I don't need to play anymore. His creative muse. That is just that's not a Bill Belichick thing to say. It's not. My creative muse. You think the dude that says snap face, Instaface, on to Cincinnati, next question. Do you think creative muse is in Bill Belichick's vocabulary? I don't think it is. But it's incredible the power that she seems to have over him. And if they're happy, let them be happy. It's just really weird. I guess they say opposites attract. So we're getting ready to wrap up here on the Monday edition of the King's Court. Jerry Reynolds back with us tomorrow. We'll be here at 3. Jerry joins us at 4 p.m. Looks like PK's in the house. Why not much talk of Woodson's former career in SAC, relationship-wise, history-wise? That's a good question, because it was one of those things that I had not really looked a ton into, to be quite honest with you. Mike Woodson was not a name that I was hearing. Fill us in. He's probably been on a staff here. I guess for me, I was more hyper focused on his relations with the people that are currently in the building and that have been in the building, because maybe it is a Doug Christie hire, and also maybe it's not. Doesn't take very much time. As an assistant coach, he's worked for the Milwaukee Bucks, the Cavs, the Sixers, the Pistons, the Knicks, and the Clippers. So are you referring to front office? Help me out here. I'm happy to say I'm wrong if I'm wrong. I don't see Sacramento coaching wise. And I do not remember Sacramento coaching wise. In fact, I am looking. He's never coached in Sacramento. So if what you're saying is he's had dealings in the front office, then I guess it makes all the sense in the world. In fact, it makes more sense in the world. Mutual firing wore Jordan playing finger puppets with Grandpa. Come on, man.
Yeah, kids were mean.
Come on, VJ. Don't be too mean. Look, if they do you. Oh, as a player. Okay, fair enough. I was not aware that he was a player here. To me, that doesn't. I'll ask Jerry about it tomorrow if that makes a difference. But yeah, Bill loves that young. Yeah, we're gonna not put that up, Nate. Yeah, come on, Nathan.
That's terrible.
Nathan, that's penalty box worthy, my man. That is very penalty box worthy. Quite honestly, playing time to me, I guess Doug Christie is different because it was the prime of the Kings' run in Sacramento. Mike Woodson, player. How many years was he in Sac as a player? Let's look it up. He played 6 seasons with the Kings. So from 85, 86, so 82, 81, 82 to 85, 86. So 5 seasons, 5 with the Kings. It doesn't do anything for me. Why would that matter? That was early on here in Sacramento. The question's for Jerry Reynolds. I'll be more than happy to ask Jerry Reynolds about his playing time. I'm more worried about his coaching time. Personally, player. No, you're good. You're good, Nathaniel. Sometimes you got to know the line 82 to 86. Yeah, it doesn't mean really anything to me. I'm looking at his coaching stats. 315 wins, 365 losses, 16 and 22 in the playoffs. I guess, again, for me, if I'm setting this up and we're going to lead right into Grant, I don't need to do the math about the ties here. Mike Woodson won a championship as an assistant coach in 2004 with the Pistons. Same time, Scott Perry was somewhere doing something in the building with the Pistons. Alvin Gentry also has the Pistons ties. Joe Dumars, we all know how much he was involved here in Sacramento. Vivek has put a lot of Pistons players and personnel around him. It's some time. And so it does make me wonder. And again, I like what Patrick had to say about Mike Woodson as a coach. I'm okay with that. Just know Mike Woodson is one seat away from the head coach if, and I know we're talking hypotheticals, but Sam Amick is usually right on the money when it comes to this thing. Doug Christie gets rid of Jay Triano, pretty much clears house, according to reports, with the exception of LB, Leandro Barbosa, who's been here and working very closely with Doug. In fact, it's really interesting, very interesting. Go back and listen to a lot of Doug's pressers or like practice or pregame interviews towards the last half of his time as interim head coach this season, and notice how many times he mentions LB versus how many times he mentions his other coaches, which wasn't that many. So it's not a surprise LB is staying. But according to Sam Amick's reporting, Mike Woodson is one of, if not the leading candidate, one of the leading candidates to be Doug's lead or associate head coach. All I'm saying is it took me 10 minutes to look through and see, okay, he's got the Pistons ties. And maybe it has nothing to do with Doug wanting him. I think he's qualified. I think the question that I ask, though, after that is why Mike Woodson? He's just coming off of a 4-year run in college that did not end great, that ended mutually. He's coming off of that run, and I guess you have to put that with the caveat that it was during a time where it was the Wild West in college basketball. The Wild West. But how many other teams would be in the Mike Woodson market right now? I just don't know that a lot of teams are in the Mike Woodson market. It's not a hot name. It's not somebody that's been coaching the last couple years on a bench somewhere in the NBA. But it is a name that fits kind of the build, the worry that we're seeing. The Scott Perry hire feels more like a Scott Perry name than it does a Doug Christie name. And that's simply off my gut. I have nothing to substantiate that. That is strictly my gut feeling. So we'll see if it materializes and where it goes from there. But it does feel like that's the type. It feels like if Scott Perry was naming his own head coach, and Doug wasn't part of the job that Scott Perry took. Now, Mike Woodson suddenly feels like a very logical name that Scott Perry would think about bringing in as head coach for the Kings. So the fact that you're kind of thinking that way, it's like, okay, Thumper feels like a defensive-minded culture coming to the Kings right now. I agree. We'll see, though. We've heard that many times before. I said it's something that I liked. I think that is it. It's what your head coach is. It's what your head coach is. You got to take on the personality of the head coach. So, hey, we're going to get out of here. Grant back in 20 minutes. Get his take on the news that possibly Mike Woodson could be headed to Sacramento as the associate head coach per Sam Amick's reporting. Also the coaching changes. The big news with Gregg Popovich, the NBA final or the NBA playoffs this last weekend. Ton to talk about. Grant will be here in 20 minutes. Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow. Cristobal, man, I told you I can't fly you out, bro. You know what, Cristobal? I'll fly you out, but you got to find those two people that I flew in with. You got to find them, Cristobal, and you've got to fly out with them. then I'll take you to Bennett's. No, you get out here. We'll hit up Bennett's. But Jerry back with me tomorrow. Show starts at 3, Jerry at 4, Grant here at the top of the hour, 5 o'clock. Join him. Go Kings, light the beam. Rockets, Clippers, go get Levine. Court is dismissed. Thank y'all. Appreciate you.